Hello and welcome everybody to today's episode of the JBA All In Podcast.
The JBA All In Podcast is your one-stop sports shop podcast for news around the sports world.
My name is Brendan,
And my name is Jack.
and we are very excited to bring today's episode. We'll be doing a Super Bowl review and an NFL Honors review. So let's jump right into it with our Super Bowl review. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers became Super Bowl champions on Sunday, defeating Kansas City Chiefs 31-9. Probably something that a lot of people didn't expect going into this, a blowout. Blowouts in the Super Bowl often aren't very entertaining for the fans watching at home. And especially when, the quarterback giving the blowout is a guy that's as hated as Tom Brady. But a Super Bowl is a Super Bowl, and congratulations to the Buccaneers for going all the way and winning it. So we're just going to discuss, what is after this game. What can we, what is there to talk about? What do the Chiefs need to improve on, and what went wrong for them? What went right for the Buccaneers, and what does this mean for them going into the offseason in 2021-2022 season? So Jack, where did the Chiefs go wrong? Where did the Buccaneers go right? And what does this mean for those two teams going into the offseason?
Well, first off, let's start with how the Chiefs went wrong. There were a plethora of different reasons, and I'm just gonna clarify. I'm just gonna clear the air. It was not the referees. The only I'd say bad call was that call in the tipped interception, the holding call, and even then the call could have gone either way. I do think that it wasn't holding and that it should have been an interception, but not even that would have changed the game that much. I mean, you could say it changed momentum, but still, the Patrick Mahomes still couldn't get the ball out. The Chiefs wide receivers weren't catching the ball very well. They just didn't have a great game. So that call didn't affect the game that much. And the other calls were fair. I mean, especially in the first quarter. Terrible, terrible defensive play by the Chiefs. I mean, sloppy. And Chiefs players were complaining. The internet was complaining, but pretty much every call was acceptable. I mean, especially that one with Tyrann Mathieu in the back of the end zone. He shoved him in the back, and then he complained about it. And, people went crazy, but pretty much all the calls are acceptable. So you can't really blame the game on the referees. Patrick Mahomes, I mean, he does have a turf toe injury, but that didn't hold him back against the Bills. The one thing he couldn't do today was throw the ball. I mean, this is the worst O-line play I've ever seen from the Chiefs. He was getting pressured every single play. He was getting hit every single play. He could not get the ball off. And I mean, you're going against an elite defense, an elite pass rush in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But, I mean, you can't let that happen to your franchise quarterback, and you can't let that happen in the Super Bowl. You got to step up, and you got to play. And like I was saying earlier, the defense. There were so many issues on the defensive side of the ball. The defensive players were selling. They're about to force a 3-and-out. They get a penalty that gives them a first down. Tom Brady gets his momentum. He tosses it to Gronk. Touchdown. Just a terrible game. And the receivers. I talked about the receivers not being able to catch the ball. The receivers could not catch a thing. Mahomes made so many good throws under pressure because Mahomes is elite. He's the I was about to say best quarterback. I was about to say second best, but you could. I mean, he's the best, but he's not the best, but he's the best. It really depends. He does those things. Mahomes magic. He's that good. And the receivers cannot catch a ball. It's like their hands were made out of stone. It's like they had two bricks on the end of their hands. Because if you've ever tried catching with bricks in your hands, you don't catch the ball, right? So it was just really sad. I mean, it was happy for me as a Chargers fan to watch the Chiefs lose, but at the same time, I mean, I'm a fan of I'm not a fan of Tom Brady. I don't love him, but I respect him. But still, it's a loss for everyone, except if you're a Buccaneers fan. I mean, most of them are probably bandwagoners, saying that they were a fan once they won the big game. But the Chiefs played a phenomenal game. The defense was elite. The offense was phenomenal. The Buccaneers had an elite game, and the Chiefs played a terrible game. Patrick Mahomes had probably the worst game of his career, if I'm being 100% honest. He had 270 yards and 2 interceptions. I'm surprised he even got that much with the way his receivers were playing. Travis Kelce was really the only reason why they were there, and Tyreek Hill, and that's it. No one else could catch the ball. The defense played terribly while Tom Brady was throwing 3 touchdowns. Leonard Fournette rushed for 90 yards and a touchdown, and Gronk was on fire, and the defense was on fire. So just a horrible game by the Kansas City Chiefs, especially to go out like this in a big game when your championship window is going to close soon. I mean, they don't have cap space. Travis Kelce's getting old. Tyrann Matthew's getting old. There's a bunch of defensive players getting old, and they don't have a great defense to begin with. I mean, Tyreek Hill's going to get older, but he's still there. They're not going to have great draft picks. So, really, it was either win this year or win next 1 or 2 years where they're still the favorites until they're no longer the favorites. Because the AFC West is getting better and better. I mean, especially the Chargers. I don't want to toot my own horn as a Chargers fan here, but we're not the favorites. Obviously not. We're probably the favorites to be the second best. And in the upcoming years, if we play our cards right, we can definitely challenge the Chiefs and we could be better than the Chiefs. But right now, the Chiefs have their window and they got to capitalize on it now because they're always going to be competitive, but they're never going to be this good ever again. They have, I'd say, 2 more years of being the best team in the league, and then I think it's no longer their time. And for the Buccaneers, they're not going to have too much success in the future. They might be able to replicate the success for 1 more year before Tom Brady's just too old. But win for the Buccaneers, horrible loss for the Chiefs.
I agree. What a terrible loss for the Chiefs. I mean, I think the blocking was a major issue, was the biggest issue. I mean, they're missing the 2 starting tackles, I believe, and really Mahomes had close to no time to throw almost every play. And I mean, he was running for his life. He, according to Next Gen Stats, isn't the most reliable thing, but according to them, he ran for 497 yards, just like scrambling out, in the before, just scrambling, like to get away from pressure before throwing the football, and that's the most of his career by a lot. But then again, Next Gen Stats, it could be off by a little bit, but still, it gives you an idea of how much he had to run around back there, especially with the turf toe injury. Against the Bills, he didn't really have to run around as much as he did against the Buccaneers. The Bills' pass isn't as ferocious as the Buccaneers' pass rush. Shaq Barrett played an incredible game. He got pressure all game long. Devin White also played a great game. The entire defense as a whole played an amazing game for the Buccaneers. And, they're really one of the most well-balanced teams in the NFL. They were this year, and they probably will be again next year. Not much, as long as they can hang on to guys like Godwin, Levante David, etc. go this offseason, they can re-sign them. They don't have the most cap space, but they've got a good amount for a playoff team. I want to say they have this second or third most of any playoff team. If you count the Colts, who just have like the 70-something million, which is 50 million more than any other playoff team, I think they have the most cap space of any playoff team. So they should be able to do that. But we'll see. Maybe they want to go out and make a big move to make themselves even better in the offseason. But as long as they keep their guys or keep their studs, if they are able to extend their young players, Tom Brady obviously he's old, but who knows how, like he's 43, but he really 43, like in terms of like he can play probably like, and normally when someone's 43, they're playing maybe 1 or 2 more years maximum. You would think, especially after winning a Super Bowl, maybe they want to like, oh, hey, I kind of ending on a high note. But Brady's going to be hungry, and who knows how long he could play for. Because they got a young roster around Brady, and if they can keep the guys around him, they could be contending for pretty much as long as Brady wants to play. If he's playing at the level he's playing at now, which there's no signs of him stopping yet. So they're going to be getting again next year. They can all those guys, like I said. And then for the Chiefs, in terms of offseason stuff, you're fine. Like this team is still going to be great. They're still going to be contending for the next decade, probably with Mahomes' contract, because Mahomes he's young. He's going to be great for that long. And as long as you have, an elite quarterback, normally you're relevant in the league. You don't see many elite quarterbacks that miss the playoffs. We see it, but not often. Like Deshaun Watson and stuff. Majority of the time, even if they don't have the greatest roster around them, most time they're able to find their way to the playoffs. Take, for example, Aaron Rodgers. Doesn't have the greatest weapons, doesn't have the best defense, but he makes his way to the playoffs every year. Russell Wilson, same thing. He has a terrible O-line. His defense was terrible this year until the last few games of the regular season. And he's made the playoffs. He was on that historic run in the first 4 or 5 weeks. So, as long as you have Mahomes, you'll be, a playoff caliber team. But in terms of keeping those guys who are aging in cap space and stuff, yeah, well, in 5 years, most of your stars right now aren't probably going to be playing at this level. But at the same time, even with you can build through the draft with day 2 picks, or if they're confident in their general manager to make those picks. I can't speak for all NFL teams, but as a Colts fan and with my experience with Chris Ballard is our GM. He does a phenomenal job at getting 2 to 3 starters minimum every draft. Not just even not just a he doesn't even need first round picks. He hasn't had a first round pick the last 2 years. He traded away. He didn't have it in 2019. Traded away in 2020 for DeForest Buckner, which just straight up, which by the way pretty much equates to him drafting him. But each year he's gotten 2 or 3 starters. 2019 he got Kari Willis, Bobby Okereke, Rocky Sin, and Paris Campbell, who's played like 5 or 6 games, dealt with a lot of injuries. But when he has been playing, he's been starting. And then 2020, last year, got Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, and Julian Blackman. So, I mean, if the Chiefs can build the draft like that, getting just like even just 1 or 2 starters every year that make an impact, then as long as you keep Patrick Mahomes around, you'll be fine. But they're definitely going to be, a great team next year. So it's not like, Mahomes isn't washed, his talent was an illusion, no. People have bad games. He could, and again, like he's also young, like it's his 3rd year starting, and while he has done some great stuff that he kind of feels like he's been, kind of feels like he's really experienced already, being in the 3 straight AFC Championship games, winning 2 of them, winning 1 Super Bowl. He's still young, and people have bad games sometimes. So let's move on to I would actually like to mention one more time, I want to just kind of one more time emphasize how well the Bucs played. Really outcoached they outcoached Andy Reid. They just out-schemed the Chiefs offense. They out-schemed the Chiefs defense. They did a great job. All right, now we'll move on to the NFL honors, which happened the night before the Super Bowl. We're just going to be talking about the awards, what we thought about them. Do we agree? Do we like who the award went to or no? So we'll be covering MVP, Coach of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, and Comeback Player of the Year, and Executive of the Year. So let's start off with Comeback Player of the Year, Alex Smith, the man who, might have had to get his leg amputated, just about a year ago, but he came back strong, and he was a starting quarterback for the
football team
until he wasn't able to anymore, and Taylor Heineke took over the job. But he led them on a good run. They won some games, and they would make to the playoffs in that weak division. Yes, but still, he played. It's just a great comeback story. So, Jack, do you agree? Do you think this award belongs to Alex Smith? And if not, who do you think it should have gone to?
Honestly, just rename the award to the Alex Smith Award because, yes, no one else deserved as much as him. His leg, like you said, almost had to be amputated. He fought so hard to get back to this spot, and to have at least some success, it's just phenomenal. So I think that not only is he the most deserving, but honestly, they should consider renaming it to his award because he is the definition of a comeback player, and he probably is one of the biggest comeback players I've ever seen, and I'm happy for him, and I definitely think he deserved this.
I agree. You just touched everything on there. The other guys who could have made third into this conversation, Big Ben is one. Maybe guys that came in retirement like Alden Smith, maybe who had a good start to the season, but really just this Alex Smith was most deserving of this award. Now let's move on to Executive of the Year. The Executive of the Year award winner was Brandon Beane of the Buffalo Bills, who his accomplishments this year were highlighted by that Stephon Diggs trade that really, helped Josh Allen over the hump and made him one of the best quarterbacks in the league. He also, took a bunch of dead salary cap space back in 2018, and he did a great job with the Bills this year, making one of the best teams in the league. And Josh Allen being young and inexperienced in the playoffs, that AFC Championship game was rough, but they'll be back in next year. So he did a good job. So Jack, do you think Brandon Beane should have won this award? Do you think it should, or do you think it should have gone to someone else? And if you think it should have gone to someone else, who?
Jason Licht and Chris Ballard were the other two, in my opinion, that popped out. But Brandon Beane, he did a really good job with the Bills. Stephon Diggs, he drafted Josh Allen, who's their franchise quarterback. That doesn't really affect coaches. It kind of does affect Executive of the Year, but I think that he's pretty deserving of this. I would have liked to see Ballard get it. He had a pretty solid draft. Although Phillip Rivers didn't really pan out. If it was Executive the past few years, I think it'd be him because he's building up a stellar team Still has so much cap space without Andrew Luck. I mean, the Buccaneers they pretty much just bought their way to a Super Bowl, so you can see that too. But I don't really have much to comment. I think this was a pretty solid choice of the award, and I'm fine with it. I personally am fine with it, but I think other people could debate other way.
I agree. Bean did a good job, but I do think it should have gone to Licht or Ballard. Licht because, well, he made the moves to get his team from a 7-9 team to a Super Bowl winning team. He went out and got Tom Brady. He went out and got Gronk. He went out and got AB. He went out and got a lot of guys that, you could say there wasn't really much competition to go out and get like Gronk or AB. Not many people were really interested in them. But there are better people interested in Brady, but you could argue for the other two, or so. I mean, I guess you could argue that, but he still made those moves to get this Buccaneer team to the next level. And then he also had a good draft getting Antoine Winfield being in the highlight stat of that draft. And he did a good job. And then he didn't make that many moves that are kind of eye popping. But I'd say it's better than what Brandon Beane did. I mean, Brandon Beane still did a good job. But his team won a Super Bowl. Ballard, I think, did the most things that were beneficial to the team, but also his team that had the least success out of the three. But also, the Bills were a playoff team last year as well. But he took a team of 7-9, and Philip Rivers 100% panned out. He did not pan out. He just a stopgap because last year there's not. Ballard isn't just going to go draft a QB or just going to go sign a young guy or trade for a young guy just for the sake of doing it. It'll get people. He said it himself in an interview. He said it'll get you guys off me for a little bit. Get you guys off my back if I go and do it, but you can't just go risk it. You have to make sure you're getting the right guy, and he's 100% right. Philip Rivers was just a guy who they knew could get him to the playoffs. Maybe win a good game in the wild card round. That's what they did. They got him to the playoffs, and he almost won a game in the wild card round. And he was I think he was probably betting on there being more options available this offseason for him. Stafford was available. Wasn't able to get him. Dak, he might have thought would have been available, but he's re-signing most likely. Maybe some other guys. But, there's still hope for this offseason. There's still some guys out there who are light rumors. They could still trade up. There are reports that they have their eyes on Justin Fields if they had the chance to get him. The Colts do. But yeah, he traded his first round pick for DeForest Buckner. That's a win. He had drafted, like I said earlier, drafted Julian Blackmon and Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman, and signing Rodrigo Blankenship, and but he did a lot of great stuff. But so I think he should have gotten a Ballard Lich, but I'm not, completely mad with the award winner. Now let's move on to the Rookie of the Year's awards, Rookie of the Year awards, Rookies of the Year awards. So, we'll start with Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think would be good. Actually, no, let's start with Defensive Rookie of the Year. Defensive Rookie of the Year, Chase Young won that award. I'll go first. I think this is just a well-deserved award. At first, it was a very, very up for grabs award with him missing some games. Julian Blackmon had a strong start. Antoine Winfield was in that conversation. Jeremy Chin was in there. And the name and Chase Young's name was also thrown around still, but he's not disregarded because he didn't really have the games played and the total stats, the totals to give him that award. But then he came back and he was strong and he had a phenomenal end to the season. Really took that defense to another level when he came back, and I think he's completely deserving of the award. Jack, what do you think?
I agree as well. He was. Wasn't he? He was the first defensive player off the board, I believe, and he was the most we all expected him to be the most dominant, and he was. He had a phenomenal season. I don't exactly know the stats, but especially for that Washington team that outperformed their expectations, I think it was a great season for him. He looked dominant. He still got some things to learn, but in terms of his future and in terms of his success this year, I think it was great. He's got a very promising future. He played very well. There was a bunch of other good rookies, like you said, but I really think that this was Chase Young's. I really think this was Chase Young's award, in my opinion. He had 44 total tackles, 4 total forced fumbles. It was just a solid year overall. So I definitely think he was deserving of the award, and I think he's got a really bright future, and he's going to be great in the years to come.
Now let's move on to the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. So Justin Herbert won it. It was really between the two Justins, Justin Jefferson, Justin Herbert, both of which broke records this season with their performances. Both of which had arguably the greatest rookie season of all time at their respective positions. I think they're both deserving of this award, but only one could get it. I wouldn't have been mad no matter where it went. I know you're a Chargers fan, so you're definitely happy that Herbie got it. Personally, if I was a voter, I probably would have voted Herbert. The one thing that puts Herbert over Jefferson for me is the fact that, it's really just I feel like Herbert he just didn't really, it's like he was the only bright spot on that team, which made him shine a little bit brighter. And while, you could say it's just because of the situation he was in, but, that's why I think he was the one to end up getting the award. And if it went to Jefferson, that would have been fine by me as well. I think, with Jefferson, you have like Adam Thielen's there. You got a good receiving core there. Kirk Cousins is not a bad quarterback. Some would argue he's a really good quarterback. He's a good quarterback. I would say he's good, not great, but he's still, and then he's a good guy you probably won't throw the ball to, and he also has Dalvin Cook, another offensive weapon, and then the defense, while the defense was not great this year, they still have some studs out there like Harrison Smith and Eric Kendricks and Daniil Hunter. The Chargers, on the other hand, Herbert was by far the best player on the offense all year long. He was like the one star on the offense. Jefferson, you had guys like Dalvin Cook. Adam Thielen too. Like he's like arguably the number one receiver on that team. Herbert, like he had Keenan Allen, which is really you could argue he's the quote unquote best player on that offense. But the star of that offense was Justin Herbert, and the star of the team was Justin Herbert. You have Joey Bosa on the defensive side this year, who got that lucrative contract, but Justin Herbert just really showed out this season and shined really bright. Just because there wasn't much competition for him on that team. He was throwing it a lot because of the defensive poor play, and sometimes and the questions in the running game a lot about who was at the running position, also the offensive line being pretty weak. So he really just was like, I think Herbert was in a more beneficial situation in terms of he was the star of that team. Well, Jefferson, when you think of the Chargers right now, the face of that team is Herbert. When you think of the Vikings, the face of the team, Jefferson's one of them, but there's also a good amount more. There's no clear-cut one on the Vikings. Jefferson's not the clear-cut number one star on that team, while Herbert's easily the guy on the Chargers right now going forward. So I think that's probably why you could say, it's the QB awards because it's a QB, which you probably would be right. But that's sometimes what it comes down to, It sometimes comes down to who just like, because with awards like this, they're rookies, it's once again, it just, and both of them deserve it. When it comes to this, it really doesn't matter at this point whether Jefferson and whether Justin, both of them, whoever didn't get it, they shouldn't worry about. They're great no matter what. I would say they each had the best rookie season of all time, their respective positions. They both deserved it, but only one of them could get it, and I'm fine with the decision no matter where. I'm fine with the decision no matter which way it would have gotten.
Okay, so as a Chargers fan, I didn't think it was close. Don't get me wrong. I'm a Justin Jefferson fan. I'm a huge fan. I love the dude. He's a great player. And at the end of the day, it's the Offensive Rookie of the Year award. It doesn't matter because Justin Jefferson is still going to be one of the best receivers in the league, in my opinion, next season. And they're still going to be studs. But with that being said, I have some awards and some season stats. I don't know if they're 1,000,000% accurate for the season stats, but Justin Jefferson has the most receiving yards as a rookie. He was also a one-time Rookie of the Year or Rookie of the Week. He was 16th in reception, 4th in yards, which is very good. 22nd in touchdowns and 6th in yards per game. While Justin Herbert has the most passing touchdowns, total touchdowns, most completions, most 3+. These some are more obscure stats like 3+ touchdown games, 2+ touchdown games, 300+ yard games. He has the most yards per game of all time. He was second in yards, I think, by like 30 or 40 yards. He was a Rookie of the Week 8 times and a 2-time Rookie of the Month. for season stats. He was 4th in completions, 6th in yards, 10th in touchdowns, and 4th in yards per game. And as a rookie quarterback who played one less game and came into a situation with a bunch of injured players, with a coach, or with a not really great coach, and with zero notice, I think it's more impressive for Justin Herbert. I mean, if he played one more game, I think he would have better stats. I mean, the Bengals defense was very weak, but, who knows what would have happened. So I think it's more impressive. And Justin Jefferson's a stud. I mean, he's one of my favorite receivers, but I don't think it was close, and I don't think the voters thought it was close either. I mean, Vikings fans and the internet definitely are very mad, but a bunch of people didn't think it was, or at least I didn't think it was close. Chargers fans didn't think it was close, and the voters did not think it was close either. But Justin Jefferson's going to come back next season. He's going to be a stud. Justin Herbert's going to be a stud. And all the people in contention are going to be stud because this is a great draft class, honestly. I think there are a bunch of great players. Joe Burrow, if he comes back, the way he was playing, he was a very solid quarterback. He was very good. Tua can get better. Chase Young is phenomenal. You've got people like Justin Jefferson. So I think it was a great draft class. I think Justin Herbert's very deserving of this award. I think Justin Jefferson's great. Both had the best rookie seasons at their respective positions. So I think it was a very fun year to watch, especially at the later end of the year, watching them go back and forth. So I think it was great to watch. It was very fun.
All right, now let's move on to the Coach of the Year award. Kevin Stefanski won this one over, guys like Brian Flores could have been in this conversation. Mike Tomlin was thrown around while the Steelers were undefeated. Ron Rivera a little bit. So, Jack, do you think Stefanski deserved this award? Personally, I think he deserved it. I think earlier in the season I would have said Flores or Tomlin, but the Miami didn't make the playoffs, and the Steelers had that fall at the end of the year, while Stefanski really, really turned up at the end of the year, and the Browns team turned into something really special. So I think he was 100% deserving of this award. Jack, what do you think?
I think this was the obvious choice for the award. Stefanski, first-year coach, 11-5. The Browns were 11-5. When was the last time they were this good? I think this is the first playoff game in I think over 2 decades, honestly. So I think this is just phenomenal by the Cleveland Browns. I mean, they even won a postseason game. So I think this is Stefanski's award. Brian Flores, he's a phenomenal young coach. 10-6 Dolphins. He was able to take that tanking roster last year and win them a few games, which is bad because they were tanking, but it's also great because he's a phenomenal head coach and he's going to be a great head coach. But I don't think that outclasses the first-year head coach in Stefanski, who took historically probably the worst franchise, or the Lions. The Lions and Browns are horrible, and he took them to the playoffs. I mean, he wasn't there for the playoff game, but it was definitely his game plan. It was definitely, he probably fired up his players. I mean, I just think it's Stefanski's award. He got Baker to have a very, very solid season, 3,500 yards, 26 touchdowns, and only 8 interceptions. 1,000-yard season for Nick Chubb, pretty solid defensive season. Myles Garrett had a phenomenal season, so I think this is definitely Stefanski's definitely deserving of this award. I mean, Rivera, sure, it's a good comeback story, beating cancer. And he took his team to playoffs. Shows that he's still a great coach, but I don't think that was as deserving as Stefanski. And, like I said, Flores, a great season, but I don't think it's deserving. So I think Stefanski was definitely the best choice for this award.
All right, now let's talk about the offensive and defensive players of the year. We had Derrick Henry winning Offensive Player of the Year over guys like Dalvin Cook, or Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and then Defensive Player went to Aaron Donald over the big guy. The big question is, most of the awards, the consensus is they went to the right person. Executive of the Year isn't really, even though I think it should have gone to someone else. Executive of the Year isn't really a big award, but I think that management is really important, so it should be talked about in podcasts like this. But with the exception of that, the Defensive Player of the Year is really only controversial one this year by the fans right now in terms of Aaron Donald getting over T.J. Watt. So let's say that for a second. Let's start with Offensive Player of the Year, which is a more contested one. Like Derrick Henry got this one. 2,000 yards rushing, the most by any running back by a lot. He's just dominant, carrying his team. He's not carrying his team. Ryan Tannehill's a great quarterback, but without that run game, they don't win the division. That I think we know that. He single-handedly won them games. And we see what happens when he can't get going. Sometimes they lose games when he's not able to rush, when he's not able to run the football. So in the playoffs, he's definitely the most valuable player on that team, and probably in running backs, our position I think is very expendable, very replaceable, not very valuable. But there's a few guys that are just special that are game changers. Guys like Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, his it factor is that he's just so powerful, so big, it's so fast that it's just insane how to tackle him. And very few guys that have that it factor. Maybe I'd also say Dalvin Cook, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara right now are also guys that have that it factor. Saquon, guys that can running a lot of that times the running game is really just on the offensive line a lot of times. We've seen it like Melvin Gordon held out for the Chargers. Austin Eckler came in, immediately filled a spot and did great. For the Colts this season, Marlon Mack went down. Jonathan Taylor came in, had just as good a season as Marlon Mack had last year. And I think that you have very few guys that have that special, thing with them that makes them just not very expendable. And Derrick Henry's one of those guys, and he's very deserving this award, in my opinion. Jack, what are your thoughts on this award? You think he deserved it? If not, who did?
I mean, Derrick Henry, over 2,000 yards. I mean, that's insane. He torched pretty much every single team he won against. So I don't think there was any other choice for this. I mean, Dalvin Cook had a good season. I really don't know what to say because he was phenomenal. That was probably one of the best running back seasons we've ever seen. 2,000 plus yards. Who can do that? Derrick Henry can because he's great. I mean, I think everyone in the AFC South is scared of him. I mean, as a Colts fan or as a Chargers fan who also likes the Colts, I'm sorry for you because you have to deal with Derrick Henry because this man is scary. He's elite. He's going to end up as one of the best running backs we've seen. Maybe not, one of the best, but he is one of the best. He is the best now. He's going to be one of the best later. And the only running back that can rival him, in my opinion, is CMC. So, yeah, this is definitely his award. I mean, over 2,000 yards. That's insane. So, I definitely think that this is his award.
Now, it's one of the more controversial ones, so Defensive Player of the Year. This is one that I think Jack takes the Steelers' defensive end side on this, or not really defensive end, but edge rusher, TJ Watt. I think you support TJ Watt in this. And I'm an Aaron Donald fan. I think he deserved the award. Aaron Donald won the award, Defensive Player of the Year, 3 out of the last 4 years. And I think he could have won it last year, too. I mean, he can win it every year for all I care, and I wouldn't mind. He's the best defensive player in the league almost every year. He's the best defensive player in the league right now. When you look at the stats, TJ Watt, he's got more sacks, he's got more of this, got more of that, but what you have to take into account is the fact that Aaron Donald is doing all of this while being double and sometimes triple teamed as an interior defensive lineman. He almost broke the sack record as an interior defensive lineman doing that. And while TJ Watt rushing off the edge, the difference, interior linemen, they're there to eat up blocks and stop the run most of the time. And you can just see that, and even Aaron Donald, even if he's not getting sacked sometimes, you can see the disruption he causes. TJ Watt, as an interior defensive lineman, the quarterback's going to see you when you come, so you got to get there fast. And they can throw the ball away sometimes. But no, he just wreaks havoc. He is the thing that opposing offenses game plan for when they play the Rams. Jalen Ramsey's great, and he will be the thing. But I think Jalen Ramsey's great season kind of got overshadowed by how dominant Aaron Donald is. People kind of forgot that Jalen Ramsey had a great season this year. He locked up some great receivers this season. He wasn't the best corner in the league. I think that honor goes to Jair Alexander, who I don't think had a single player go for. I want to say he had very few games where players had more than 2 or 3 catches and like 20 or 30 yards on him. Opposing their one wide receivers, they just packages man him up against them all game long. But Jalen Ramsey's definitely a top 5, top 3 corner in the league, but people kind of forgot about how great of a season he had this year just because of how dominant Aaron Donald is, and now, and just like that's what opposing defenses have to game plan for, because Aaron Donald, he's going to be there. You can't run towards his side, or well, you can, but it's going to be hard. It's hard, to block him. You got to get the ball up quick. He's just something that he's the thing that the game plan for, and he has the stats to back it up too. His stats aren't that far behind TJ Watt, especially the disadvantage he's at in terms of his positioning on the field running 3-tech. So I think he's deserving the award. But Jack, take the floor. Tell me why TJ Watt deserves it.
I'll come out and say I don't really think TJ Watt deserved it. It could go either way. I did say TJ Watt initially, but now I'm having second thoughts because like you said, double, triple team every game for not Derrick Henry. I'm still thinking about how good Derrick Henry is. For Aaron Donald, Aaron Donald's the best defensive player in the league. He might go down as one of the greats. He will go down as one of the greats, but probably not the best of all time. But we'll see because he's just that great. And but TJ Watt also had a phenomenal season. I don't know his exact sack number, but he had over 53 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 15 sacks. I'm sorry, that's what he had. And I think that's phenomenal, especially. Yeah, that's just phenomenal. But Aaron Donald is getting double teamed every single game, so I think it really could have gone both ways. I'd rather had TJ Watt, but Aaron Donald is the best defensive player in the league, no question about it. So it's pretty much his award at this point every single year. So I say either way, but I'm fine with whatever. So I think that this was a good choice.
Looks like I convinced you. So let's move on to the big award, the MVP award. Aaron Rodgers won it. Pretty much, a good, easy decision there. Mahomes had it at one point. He looked like he was going to be competing with Aaron Rodgers down the stretch, but Aaron Rodgers' season was so good. He definitely deserved it. He was great especially with, he has Devontae Adams, who's amazing, but at the same time, Devontae Adams wouldn't be having that great season without Rodgers. He did Robert Tonyan, who I guarantee you most NFL fans, diehard or casual, did not know his name. He was not a household name before this season, and he was one of the best tight ends in the league this season, just statistically, because Aaron Rodgers, made him look great. I'm not saying he's not a good tight end. I think he, players break out, and I guarantee, and he could probably go to another team, and he could probably still be well. You just need a chance. But we all know that Robert Tonyan's not doing what he did this season without Aaron Rodgers doing what he did this season, and he got snubbed from the Pro Bowl, but Pro Bowl is just stinky no matter what. Now, Aaron Rodgers deserved this MVP award. And the other MVP award, Super Bowl MVP, we're going to talk about it. Not really that big of a deal, Super Bowl MVP. But Brady won it. I think he was deserving of it. At first, it looked like Gronk might have been the favorite earlier in the game when Gronk caught the first 2 touchdown passes. But then Brady threw one to AB. Leonard Fournette got one. And really, the MVP of that game was just the defense as a whole. You just pick one player, probably Brady, because because Gronk, he did have 2 touchdowns, but he also only had, I think he had 60 yards receiving. But yeah, it's not that big of a deal. I think going to the right guy, Brady. He played great that year, that game. Yeah, I think that the best part of that game for them was the defense, like I said before, but it wasn't really one player. So one player, I think, would Brady, but I don't know. But in terms of the actual MVP award, the real one, the Aaron Rodgers deserved it, and that's really all I have to say on the matter. Jack?
Aaron Rodgers did deserve it indeed. Patrick Mahomes had a great season, but I don't know the exact stat for his exact dropped interceptions number, but I think it was somewhere up at like 16, which is insane. That many dropped interceptions. You have to account that because I count a dropped interception as an interception in my mind. It's not a change of possession, but when I'm looking at stats, I think, well, he should have been punished for that, but somebody messed up. Somebody didn't do their job. Well, they didn't do their job. Obviously, they were there, but someone made a mistake and it didn't count. So it doesn't hold as much weight as an interception. But I like to look at that when I'm coming up with stats. And if you take away those dropped interceptions, I still would give it to Aaron Rodgers. 48 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He almost had 50 touchdowns on the season. He had 4,299 yards. That is just insane. And I mean, sure, you had Devontae Adams, who probably could have been Offensive Player of the Year. He was he was a beast. 18 touchdowns, around 1,400 yards. Other than that, you had a guy like Marcus Valdes-Scantling who had a pretty solid season, but only 700 yards, and Tunyon and Lazard. So he made it work with not the greatest wide receiver core. So I definitely think that this was his MVP award. MVP is a regular season award, so not going to take the postseason. But this was a very dominant season. I think he's very deserving of this award.
Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of the JBA All In Podcast. We hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you support, and we'll be coming at you very soon with our next episode. All right, we'll catch you later.